Across the country, we here at Mecum see all sorts of collections. And in this case, here in North Carolina, we're privileged to see the collection of the late Glenn Boyd, who not only built a successful automotive dealership network, but spent much of his life collecting his passion, American classics. I had the opportunity to sit down with his son, Alan, and our very own John Craman to learn more about Glenn and some of his cars coming to the Spring Classic Auction at Indianapolis in May. Alan, thanks so much for having us. This is beautiful.
We're glad to have you here. It's really exciting.
Yeah, and there's so much to see and do. Your dad was quite the collector.
He loved anything original. Didn't matter how far he had to travel to find it or send someone, just anything original. And it's a pretty slow process trying to collect cars with original paint, original interior, original tires, all original, and having the discernment to know that it's original.
So tell us a little bit about Dad. Who was Glenn?
My father was a really cool guy, and I'm sure everybody says that about their father. My father was self-made. My grandfather started our family's first car dealership in 1952, but my father became a dealer in his late 20s. That was in '77, and it was a General Motors store, which is where his passion for so many Buicks, Chevrolets, Oldsmobiles, Pontiacs, is where it came from. And he never stopped working hard, and a very humble guy. Gave God the glory for everything he had and everything he did. But to watch him to actually enjoy something as much as collecting these cars, just what he created and who he was, very proud to be a son, really cool.
JK, let's talk about this consignment as a whole. What stands out to you, the types of cars and the condition that they're in?
With Glenn, he didn't focus on any one specific make or brand, but what we have found out is he really has a preference for originality. The aura of originality of this group of cars is unlike anything we've ever seen before. And then you go past that to even the types of cars. What we're gonna really be focusing on are cars that were kind of ordinary cars from back in the day in extraordinary condition. And we don't see that a lot.
There was something about originality that Glenn seemed to really love.
Yes, absolutely. He loved an original car. If he'd get something and it was not original or it had work done to it or been restored, he wouldn't keep it. He'd get rid of it. He's like, you know, it's a nice car, but it's not him.
Cars, for a lot of us, are time capsules. All it takes is for somebody to literally sit behind the wheel of any of these cars and to be transported back into a completely different time era.
You're gonna go, wow. I mean, this looks just like when I bought it back, you know, many years ago. And there's close to 40 vehicles like this that are gonna be offered low mileage, original paint, in pristine condition.
You know, it was the right guy at the right time collecting cars that some other people didn't put as much priority to, and future buyers, future collectors, they're gonna benefit from that.
So let's talk specifics about these cars and what stands out to you. The first one, a 1953 Chevrolet Belair.
Well, you know, we all know the popularity of the Chevys beginning in 1955, going through 1957, but there were Chevys before that that really sort of laid a path for what we saw in the wild era of the 1950s. And by 1953, the Chevy Belair was their top-of-the-line car. Now, this particular example is a four-door, but these cars were sold in huge quantities, and so few exist today. To see one and actually sit behind the wheel, look at that three-speed manual transmission shifted on the column, is a trip back in time that is really going to excite a lot of potential buyers.
John, tell us about the 1966 Cadillac DeVille.
I'll tell you what, that 66 Cadillac is really something special. Start with the color combination. It's a pale yellow with a black vinyl top with a white interior. That's the first thing that will just stop in your tracks. And then second is the physical size of a 66 Cadillac. And they had a big engine too, 429 cubic inches of big Cadillac V8 power. But once again, the personality of this car just screams 1966. No modifications of any type, and the originality of the car is very apparent.
JK, let's talk about the 1962 Pontiac Bonneville.
Well, you know, Danielle, I don't want to pick favorites, but I'm going to. The 1962 Pontiac Bonneville is a convertible, and it's a four-speed. That is an unbelievable rare combination. First of all, the Bonneville, top of the line in Pontiac, 1962, legendary engine, 389, but that tritone leather bench seat interior with that 4-speed shifter is gonna get buyers going crazy. I'd love to have that one myself. The 1972 Buick Skylar Custom is a convertible, and it's in a classic convertible color combination. It's red with the black interior, Buick 350 power with an automatic transmission, and once again, it just screams the early 1970s. That is going to be a very sought-after car as well.
Next up, 1959 Buick Invicta.
All right, well, my vote for perhaps the most outrageous styled car of this entire collection, but it's really about a couple things with the 59 Buick Invicta. The Invicta name itself, which was actually the mid-size car at the time, short wheelbase car, with the largest engine that was available. So a little bit of a performance image, and on top of that, rarity. These cars are rarely seen and almost never in this kind of condition.
John, another highlight of this consignment is the 1959 Ford Galaxy.
59 Ford, 1 year only body style, very distinctive in its appearance, very ornate grille, big jet rocket engine taillights on it. The Galaxy body style with 2 doors, always a desirable look. And once again, just a very rarely seen, near perfect example of what Ford was doing to combat all the craziness of the late 1950s. 1955, a big year for Ford. KRON Victoria was their deluxe model. It definitely had more of an upscale look, but the originality of this car is astonishing. And a white and black two-tone only adds to what we found out later as Ford just sort of tipping their hand to an era of styling and performance and color combinations. A lot of people think it began in 1955.
John, how about the Bullet Bird, the 1961 Ford T-Bird?
Man, what a styling sensation. In 61, Ford Thunderbird with an all-new look that took it out of the 1950s and into the swinging 60s. 300 horsepower 390 was a good performer in this car, but is really about the outrageous styling. Only ran 3 model years, and the personality of originality that we see the 61 Thunderbird, obviously expecting a really big price on this one.
Going back a little bit further now in the Ford family, the 1946 Ford.
This car is so original, it's almost unbelievable. And where you really begin to see how original this car is by spending time looking underneath the hood at the engine compartment of the flathead V8 engine, and then stepping inside, having a seat, and looking at the interior all the way down to the floor, all original. It is so impressive. The 1950 Chevy Deluxe is a car that you wouldn't really expect to see in any collection or in this type of condition. This was a very popular car back in 1950. Very few of those cars have survived today. This particular example is so pristine that buyers that appreciate originalities and seek that out are going to want to own this car. It could very well possibly be the finest 1950 Chevrolet in existence.
Wow. That's a statement, John.
These are cars that are very rarely seen.
Alan, one of the prizes in this consignment, I think, is the 1969 Riviera. That one's cool.
How cool is that? And what's so cool about that car? Not only is it all original, and when you see it, it doesn't make sense. It looks like it just came out of the factory, but it has less than 1,700 miles.
Perhaps the nicest original car of this entire collection, and one of the most unusual. Riviera was their luxury car with a performance engine. Buick specific 430 cubic inch V8. They were all automatic transmissions, but it is just the overall look of this car combined with the extreme originality. But I think it's very safe to say that there are no other 69 Buick Rivieras out there with this level of low mileage equipment level with a lot of options, and just the condition and the overall personality of this car takes us right back to 1969.
And finally, John, the 1963 Oldsmobile 98.
Another astonishing car. Look, 1963 Olds 98, top of the line luxury car, 4-door, sold like crazy. They just don't exist. They're gone. They are lost to history. But the rarity, and the condition, and once again, the very high equipment level puts this car in a class of its own. Like many of the cars in the group, this is one of the finest examples that will ever be available for sale.
Alan, what makes right now the right time? Why are you selling now?
That's a really good question. I don't know that there ever is a right time to sell something that your father was so passionate about collecting. But I do know this, these cars, they eat, sleep, and breathe, and someone has to take care of them. They need to continue to be driven. They need to continue to be cleaned and enjoyed, and if they just sit there, that's not good for these type of cars.
Buyers at the big Mecum event, such as Dana Mecum's Original Spring Classic Indianapolis this year, are used to seeing great collections and great cars. But when Glenn's collection gets rolled out, I think it's really going to send a message that here is an opportunity that just does not come along very often.
Whoever the highest bidder is going to go home with these original cars, and they will not be disappointed.
What an amazing collection with an amazing group of people. They truly are caretakers of history. It's been a real thrill to be here, and I, for one, can't wait to see the Glenn Boyd collection cross the block at Dana Mecum's 37th Original Spring Classic at the Indiana State Fairgrounds, May 10th through the 18th. Over 3,000 collector cars will be there, and I hope you are too. I'll see you soon.